Well, there's a really interesting new Washington Post report out by Josh Dawsey. We can put this headline up on the screen about the campaign strategy that Donald Trump is using behind closed doors in fundraisers. I think one key part of this report, Krystal, is Trump is allegedly telling a lot of these billionaire donors, basically, I'm not happy with $2 to $3 million. I think he says he's, quote, not very happy if they only give $2 to $3 million. He wants more like $25 million from some of his top donors. And as he's making those asks, he's also unsurprisingly mentioning that his tax cuts will expire in 7 months and that Joe Biden won't renew them. The Post makes an interesting point, Krystal, that because of the Bob McDonnell case, you're a Virginian, so you probably remember this question of the quid pro quo, that unless Donald Trump is explicit and saying, if you give me $25 million, I will cut your taxes, it's legally permissible, which is somewhat amusing as a reality because we all know what he means when he says that. In fact, he has been pretty open about making that pitch to wealthy individuals. I think did Kyle flag this next SOT? We're going to roll into it in just 1 second. That's a little teaser. Stay with us because it goes back to 2016. Actually, it goes back to 2015. This is another report from the Washington Post. We can go ahead and put B2 up on the screen. He's also telling people that telling donors he is going to crush pro-Palestinian protests. He's going to deport demonstrators. We know that that's actually a big priority of some new big donors that have flocked to the Republican Party since October 7th. We've seen, people sort of in the mold of Bill Ackman become curious about giving more money to Republicans than they had in the past, some of them very openly because of what they saw on college campuses after October 7th. And if you're looking for someone to give money to, Donald Trump might be your guy because, as he's going to explain in this hilarious mashup flagged by Kyle, people know exactly what they're going to get from him. Take a look.
And just remember, and it's very important, all of this money that I was talking about a little while ago, all of that money comes from my friends, guys that I know. I used to be one of them. I know the system better than anybody. All of that money that's going to Hillary and Jeb and Scott and Marco and all of them. The people that are putting up that money it's like puppets. Bing, bing. You saw that. They had it on Jimmy Fallon. I better not do it anymore. The bing, bing, bang, bang, boom. I was imitating puppets, and I said, maybe I shouldn't do that anymore. But it's true. They're totally controlled by special interests, lobbyists, and donors. They're totally. When a guy gives $1 million, and much more than that, some give much more, but do you think they're talking about, like, nothing? They're talking turkey. They're talking lots of different things. And with me, I don't need anybody's money. I don't want anybody's money. So a lot of times, that's all of his donors and special interests out there. So that's what it is. And by the way, let me just tell you, we needed tickets. You can't get them. You know who has the tickets I'm talking about to the television audience? Donors, special interests, the people that are putting up the money. So it is. The RNC told us we have all donors in the audience, and the reason they're not loving me, the reason they're not loving me is I don't want their money. I'm going to do the right thing for the American public. I don't want their money. I don't need their money. And I'm the only one up here that can say that.
So that was obviously a mashup from the 2016 Republican primary. You heard Donald Trump in a debate. You heard him also on a campaign stop in New Hampshire. And Krystal, it's actually a pretty interesting about face for Donald Trump with these two reports from the Washington Post.
Yeah.
And I say about face, but it's always been his point that I alone can fix it. I know the system and I alone can fix it. The quote that was just played there, I know the system better than anybody, because Donald Trump said, I've played this system for years. At the same time as he was saying that, he said in that video, I don't need anybody's money. And the cool thing about that clip, it just reminded me of how huge a part of that pitch
Right.
It was about his attraction for voters. Like, if you talk to voters back in 2015, 2016, they loved that Donald Trump, they felt like he was not beholden to any special interests. Now that he's been in this position of power, he defeated, whatever you think about him, defeated the establishment in these presidential primaries in 2016, defeated Hillary Clinton in 2016. He is now begging for donor cash because he does need their money.
Well, I mean, he's just dropped the pretense. And it was always a pretense. But I think people forget what a powerful part of his pitch in 2016 this was.
Yes.
Destroying the swamp, right? Listen, I've been there. I know these people. I know what they think they're getting with that money. And I'm not part of that. I can fund myself. Now, he never actually did that to any significant extent. So it was always a lie.
Although he had way less money. He spent less than Hillary Clinton did.
But one of the things, there's a few things that are different now. Number one, at that point, he actually had to try to appeal to people. Now it's sort of like locked in. His supporters on the Republican side, they are 100% locked in. And in a sort of reverse effect of what the Democrats are doing, in a certain sense, he's running against how bad Joe Biden is, in the same way Joe Biden is running against how bad Donald Trump is. So the pretense of being any sort of anti-establishment populist figure is gone. It's also very difficult to sustain when your primary accomplishment as president was giving tax cuts to a bunch of rich people. So the brazen nature with which he's going out and courting these billionaires is, I mean, it's really something. And listen, Joe Biden is out courting billionaires too. Both parties definitely out there courting billionaires, especially these two candidates, because Joe Biden has never had a grassroots fundraising base to tap. Donald Trump used to, but his is also greatly, greatly diminished to the extent that he has been really dramatically out-fundraised by Joe Biden, plus a bunch of his money is going to legal bills. So there are a few ways in which this pushes the limits of campaign finance law. One is, like Emily was saying, I mean, he goes in a room full of rich people and he's like, give me money, I'm gonna make sure you get your tax cuts. He goes in a room full of oil industry executives and says, literally, raise me $1 billion and I'll cut all the regulations that you want. And trust me, your money will be more than made up for under my administration. Goes in a room full of New York donors who are very interested in crushing these pro-Palestinian protests and say, hey, I'm gonna set that movement back 30 years if you give money to me. So it's these very direct promises. But also, you're actually not allowed to ask directly for those sums of money because, listen, the system is very Byzantine and, bizarre. But the candidate into the direct candidate campaign, you can't raise millions of dollars. So you can do a fundraising event for your PAC that can raise millions of dollars, but you can't directly make the ask. So that's how these pushing the... Do I expect there to be any consequences for that? No, because as you were pointing out, Emily, the Supreme Court has just basically decided, like, there is no such thing as corruption. Bob Menendez is testing that out right now. If you literally are getting gold bars in exchange for, like, business deals, does that meet the bar of corruption, the standard that's been set by the Supreme Court? Possibly yes on that one.
He's a trailblazer. He's blazing that trail for other oligarchs.
To make sure that they can get those gold bars when and how they want to.
God bless Bob Menendez.
That's really the bottom line.
Out there doing the Lord's work, hustling.
But I also think, there's something to the fact that now he's just letting it all hang out. He needs the money. There's a level of desperation to it. So it is something to behold the, as you put it, about face, because he doesn't talk at all like he used to in 2016. In 2016, there were some things rhetorically that, you could say, okay, that's a populist position rhetorically, and that was a big part of his appeal. That, at this point, is all gone.
But you said something so interesting, too, which is that people's positions on Trump and Biden are so polarized that they're basically locked in.
Yeah.
Even that Donald Trump, is talking in a way that's so different from how he campaigned in 2016 on an issue exactly like this, which I do think, just thinking back to then, it's very interesting to remember how average voters were attracted to Trump because, in so many cases, people would say, listen, he's not beholden to the special interests. He was talking in the debate video about the special interests. And it's just it's a billionaire arms race. We forget how kind of unique 2016 was and that Donald Trump spent a good chunk of change less than Hillary Clinton, which is extremely rare in a big presidential race. It's basically always tied, even if there's, some marginal differences. But he really was outspent by Hillary Clinton, in part because people like the billionaires, a lot of the billionaires were just not comfortable with him. They didn't know what to expect from him.
Yeah.
And now he's like, I got you the tax cut.
Well, that's the other piece.
did it.
Is the billionaire class is more comfortable with him now. Now, he always had a certain number of billionaires supporting him, but now we've even seen people like Jamie Dimon signaling, like, yeah, I'd be okay with another Trump administration. I think a few things happened. Number one, those tax cuts. Number two, that set really hates the Biden administration's position on antitrust. And I mean, you just only have to look at the Wall Street Journal, how many editorials Matt Stoller keeps count. Have they run against Lena Khan, or it was like a whole project to,
like 100
to try to
so
take
far.
It is insane, the number of editorials that they've written about Lena Khan specifically, because they hate that there is any obstacle to this, giant proliferation of monopolies that has taken over our entire economy. And so on that, and also on labor, these are major, major rubs with the billionaire class. And Trump was incredibly friendly to them. And, oil industry executives know they're going to get what they want from a Donald Trump administration. Your average run-of-the-mill billionaire knows they're going to get their tax cuts. Whatever oligarchs want to see their monopolies continue to grow and flourish, they're going to get that under a Trump administration versus a Biden administration. So, and I think that's part of why there's such a just overt comfort with him this time around, where last time they just weren't sure, right? There was at least enough of a populist pitch that they're like, I don't know, and uncertainty and chaos is bad for business. Now it's like, no, we know what we got last time, and it was great for us. It worked out perfectly well for us.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think that's right. I'm sure there's a pretty obvious argument from Trump's behalf that he ideologically agrees with tax cuts and he ideologically agrees with oil executives. So he'd be interested in, giving them their leases and all of that stuff anyway. But it's another thing to make that clear at the donor meetings. You're like, you know where I am on oil, right, Mr. Oil Executive? Well, you know where Joe Biden is on oil, right? I mean, it does get into Bob McDonnell territory.
Yeah.
But they all do it. They really do all do it.
Absolutely. No doubt about it.
Hey, if you like that video, hit the like button or leave a comment below. It really helps get the show to more people.
And if you'd like to get the full show ad-free and in your inbox every morning, you can sign up at breakingpoints.com.
That's right. Get the full show, help support the future of independent media at breakingpoints.com.